The cargo ship moved slowly through space, carrying supplies to the outer colonies. Captain Daniel Hayes sat in his chair, watching the stars pass by. He had made this route 100 times before. It was boring work, but it paid well and kept him away from Earth's crowded cities. His crew of 12 people worked quietly, checking systems and making sure everything ran smoothly. The communication panel beeped. Daniel looked at it, expecting a routine message from one of the stations. Instead, he saw an emergency signal. His heart started beating faster. Emergency signals were rare. They usually meant something bad had happened. He pressed the button to play the message. Static filled the speakers at first. Then a woman's voice came through, shaking with fear. "This is New Haven Colony. We are under attack. Unknown ships in orbit. They're firing on us. We have no defenses. They're not answering our calls. Please, anyone who can hear this, we need help. They're killing everyone. Oh God, they're coming through the walls. Children are screaming. Fire everywhere. Someone please." The message ended suddenly. Only static remained. Daniel stared at the panel. His hands were shaking. New Haven was a farming colony. 40,000 people lived there, families, children, regular people trying to make a life on a new world. They had no weapons, no military presence. Just farms and homes and schools. He grabbed the controls and changed course immediately. His first officer, a young woman named Karen Mills, looked at him with wide eyes. "Captain, what are we doing?" "We're going to New Haven, right now." "But sir, if there's an attack happening..." "I know. Get everyone ready. We might find survivors." The Morning Star pushed its engines to maximum speed. Daniel knew his old cargo ship couldn't fight anyone, but he had to try. He had to see if anyone was still alive. The 6-hour journey felt like 6 years. Nobody on the ship spoke much. They all knew what they might find. When they arrived at Epsilon Tertius, Daniel felt his stomach drop. The planet looked peaceful from orbit. Green forests, blue oceans, purple grasslands. Beautiful. But his sensors showed no life signs from the colony. "No communication signals, nothing. Take us down," he ordered quietly. The ship descended through the atmosphere. As they got closer to where New Haven should be, Daniel saw the smoke first. Thick black columns rising into the sky. Then he saw the destruction. The colony was gone. Not damaged, gone. Buildings had been reduced to burning craters. The fields were scorched black. Bodies lay everywhere, scattered like broken toys. Some people had been running away when they died. Others had been shot down in their homes. The attackers had been thorough. Daniel landed the ship near what used to be the main square. He and his crew put on protective suits and went outside. The smell hit them even through the filters. Burning metal, burning wood, burning flesh. Karen threw up inside her helmet. They searched for hours. Every building, every street, every farm. They found no survivors, not one. 40,000 people dead. Daniel saw a small shoe near a crater, pink with flowers on it. A child's shoe. He had to look away. His engineer, a man named Peter Clark, found something in the wreckage. A piece of metal with strange markings on it. It came from one of the attacking ships. The symbols were nothing they recognized. Not human. Not from any species humanity had contact with before. Daniel took pictures of everything. Bodies, buildings, the alien wreckage. His hands kept shaking. He had been in space for 20 years. He had seen accidents, disasters, even a few pirate attacks. But nothing like this. This was pure murder. They also found the colony's security recordings. The cameras had captured everything before being destroyed. Daniel watched the footage with his crew. They saw the ships arrive, huge and dark. They saw the bombardment start without any warning. They saw people running, trying to hide, trying to protect their children. The aliens didn't care. They just kept firing. The attack had lasted 3 hours. The aliens made sure to destroy everything. Every building, every vehicle, every person. Then they left, their ships disappearing into space like ghosts. Karen was crying. Peter was just staring at the screen. Daniel felt something cold and hard forming in his chest. Not just sadness, anger, pure burning anger. "We need to send this to Earth," he said. "Everyone needs to see what happened here." They uploaded everything to the ship's communication system. All the pictures, all the videos, all the evidence. Daniel added his own report describing what they found. At the end, he wrote something extra. These attackers didn't come here for resources. They didn't give any warnings. They didn't take prisoners. They just killed everyone. This wasn't war. This was murder. Every person on Earth needs to see this. Every person in space needs to know what these aliens did to us. He sent the message using every channel available. Emergency frequencies, military channels, civilian networks, everything. The data packet would take 3 days to reach Earth, but it would get there. Before they left, Daniel walked through the colony one more time. He wanted to remember. He wanted to feel the anger, to keep it burning inside him, because he knew what would happen next. Earth would respond, humanity would respond, and it would be terrible. He stopped at a memorial wall the colonists had built. It had names carved into it of the first people who arrived at New Haven 15 years ago. Pioneers, dreamers, people who wanted to build something new and good. Now they were all dead, along with everyone who came after them. "I'm sorry we didn't get here in time," Daniel said to the empty air, "but I promise you this won't go unanswered." The morning star left Epsilon Tertius behind. The planet looked peaceful again from orbit. But Daniel knew he would never forget what he saw on the surface. None of his crew would. They traveled in silence back to the nearest major station, each person alone with their thoughts. 3 days later, Daniel's message reached Earth. It appeared on news networks within minutes. People saw the bodies. They saw the destroyed homes. They saw what the aliens had done. The reaction was immediate. Protests started in every major city. People demanded action. Politicians who talked about peace and diplomacy were shouted down. The message was clear. Humanity wanted justice. Humanity wanted revenge. Daniel watched the news coverage from the station. He saw the anger spreading like fire across all human worlds. He knew he had started something that couldn't be stopped now. Part of him felt guilty about that, but a larger part felt satisfied. The aliens had made a mistake. They thought humans would be easy targets. They thought one destroyed colony would scare everyone else. They were wrong. They had just woken something up. Something that had been sleeping peacefully but could be very dangerous when provoked. Daniel knew what was coming next. He could feel it in his bones. Humanity was about to show the galaxy what happened when you hurt innocent people. It would be a lesson nobody would forget. The meeting room was packed with people. Generals, admirals, politicians, and advisors filled every seat. More stood along the walls. Everyone was there to decide one thing. How would humanity respond to New Haven? Admiral Patricia Cole stood at the front of the room. She was 60 years old with gray hair and sharp eyes that missed nothing. She had spent her entire adult life in the military. She had fought in 3 different wars. But nothing had prepared her for this moment. "You've all seen the footage from New Haven," she said. Her voice was steady and cold. 40,000 civilians murdered in 3 hours. No warning, no demands, no communication at all. They came, they killed everyone, and they left. That's what we're dealing with. She pressed a button and images appeared on the screen behind her. The destroyed colony. The bodies. The children's toys scattered in the dirt. Several people in the room looked away. Some were crying. Others just looked angry. "Intelligence has tracked the attackers back to a system we call Omega-7. Patricia continued. "We know they have a significant military presence there. We don't know how many ships, but our estimates suggest at least 10,000, possibly more." A politician stood up. He was young, maybe 35, wearing an expensive suit. "Admiral, surely we should try diplomatic contact first. We don't even know why they attacked. Maybe this was a misunderstanding." Patricia looked at him like he was stupid. "A misunderstanding? They killed 40,000 people. That's not a misunderstanding. That's a massacre. But if we attack back, won't that start a war?" "They already started the war," Patricia said. Her voice got louder. "They fired the first shot. They killed our people. We didn't ask for this. But we're not going to sit here and do nothing while our colonies get destroyed." The room erupted in arguments. Some people agreed with Patricia. Others wanted to wait, to think, to plan. The debate went on for hours. But every time someone suggested waiting, someone else would bring up the images from New Haven. Those images were impossible to ignore. Finally, after 3 days of meetings, the vote came. Should humanity mobilize for war? The result was overwhelming. Only 5 people voted against it. Everyone else voted yes. The mobilization order went out immediately. Every military base, every shipyard, every colony received the same message. Prepare for war. Send every available ship to the gathering point near Mars. This was the largest military operation in human history. Commander Lisa Grant watched from the Mars orbital platform as the ships started arriving. At first, it was just a few dozen. Military vessels from nearby bases. Destroyers, cruisers, a few battleships. But then more came, and more, and more. Ships arrived from everywhere. The big dreadnoughts from Jupiter, each one the size of a small city. Fast attack ships from the asteroid belt. Carriers from the outer colonies loaded with fighter craft. Even civilian ships showed up. Mining vessels with weapons welded onto their hulls. Luxury cruise ships converted into troop transports. Cargo ships carrying supplies. How many do we have now? Lisa asked her assistant. Lieutenant Jake Morrison checked his computer. 400,000 ships, Commander. More arriving every hour. Lisa couldn't believe it. 400,000. That was more ships than existed in some entire star systems, and they were still coming. Every human who owned a ship and could fight wanted to be part of this. The anger was universal. Everyone wanted revenge for New Haven. The ships formed into groups. Military vessels in the center, organized by size and capability. Civilian vessels on the outside, supply ships in the rear. The coordination required was incredible. Thousands of officers worked around the clock to make sure ships didn't crash into each other, that everyone had fuel and ammunition, that communication networks stayed functional. Admiral Gregory Stone arrived to take command. He was 58 years old, tall and thin with a face that looked like it was carved from stone. He had commanded fleets before, but nothing this size. Nobody had. He stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Retribution, and looked at the display showing all the assembled ships. The number kept growing. 500,000, 600,000, 650,000. Sir, we're receiving reports from the outer colonies, his communication officer said. More ships are on the way. Current projections suggest we'll have over 700,000 vessels within 48 hours. Gregory nodded slowly. 700,000 ships. The number was almost impossible to comprehend. Each ship had a crew. Each crew had families. Millions of people were involved in this operation, all because of one destroyed colony. Begin final preparations, he ordered. All ships need to complete weapons checks within 24 hours. I want every missile loaded, every gun ready, every shield generator tested. We're not going to fail because of poor preparation. His officers got to work. Gregory remained at the display studying the tactical data. Intelligence had provided information about the enemy's home system. They had defenses. They had ships, but nothing compared to what humanity was bringing. Captain Helen Price commanded the battleship Vengeance. It was one of the newest and most powerful ships in the fleet. She gathered her crew in the main hangar bay. 3,000 people stood before her, looking up at the platform where she stood. I know you're all scared, she said. I am too. We don't know what we're flying into. We don't know if we'll come back. But I know why we're doing this. 40,000 innocent people are dead. Families, children, people who never hurt anyone. They were murdered for no reason. And we're going to make sure that never happens again. The crew erupted in cheers. They banged their fists on the walls, stomped their feet, shouted their agreement. Helen felt the energy in the room. These people were ready to fight, ready to die if necessary, all for people they never met. Similar scenes happened across the fleet. Every captain gave speeches. Every crew prepared for battle. Some people wrote letters to their families just in case they didn't come back. Others checked their weapons again and again, making sure everything worked perfectly. On Earth, crowds gathered in public squares to watch the news coverage. Cameras on the Mars platform showed the assembled fleet. It stretched for thousands of miles in every direction. A sea of metal and weapons all pointed at one target. The images were broadcast across every human world. People watched in silence, understanding the magnitude of what was happening. Admiral Stone prepared to give the final order. He opened a channel that reached every ship in the fleet. 700,000 captains and 3 million crew members heard his voice. This is Admiral Gregory Stone. In 6 hours we will jump to the Omega-7 system. We will arrive together and we will fight together. Our mission is simple. Find the people who destroyed New Haven. Make them pay for what they did. Show the galaxy that humanity will not tolerate attacks on our civilians. He paused, letting his words sink in. Then he continued. I won't lie to you. Some of us won't come back. War is brutal and people die. But we're not doing this for glory. We're not doing this for territory or resources. We're doing this because it's right, because innocent people deserve justice. Because we are human and we protect our own. Another pause. The fleet waited in silence. All ships, prepare for jump. Target coordinates are locked into your navigation systems. Stay in formation. Follow your squadron leaders. And remember, for New Haven, for humanity, for everyone who can't fight back themselves. The countdown began. 6 hours until jump. The fleet used that time for final preparations. Crews ate last meals. Engineers checked engines one more time. Gunners calibrated their weapons. Everyone did something to keep busy, to avoid thinking too much about what was coming. Gregory stood on his bridge, watching the timer count down. He thought about his own family back on Earth, his wife, his 2 daughters. They were safe because of colonies like New Haven, because people were willing to move to the frontier and build new homes. Those people deserved protection. They deserved justice. The timer reached 0. All ships, Gregory said quietly. Jump now. 700,000 ships vanished from normal space in a flash of light. The largest military fleet in history disappeared, traveling faster than light toward their target. Behind them, Mars' orbit was suddenly empty. Ahead of them, the enemy waited, unaware of what was coming. The journey would take 2 days. 2 days to cross the distance between human space and the Omega-7 system. 2 days for the fleet to stay in formation, to keep their weapons ready to prepare for battle. On Earth, people waited. On the colonies, people waited. Everyone knew what was happening. Everyone understood that humanity had made a choice. No more running, no more hiding. Someone had hurt them, and they were going to hit back harder than anyone expected. The Kethrak Empire had ruled their region of space for 3,000 years. They were warriors bred for combat and conquest. Their history was written in the blood of defeated enemies. 47 different species had fallen to their fleets. Some were enslaved. Others were wiped out completely. The Kethrak believed only the strong deserved to survive. Warlord Thraken sat in his command center on the fortress world of Kethras Prime. He was 8 feet tall, covered in thick scales with 4 arms and red eyes that glowed in the dim light. He was reviewing reports when his intelligence officer approached nervously. Warlord, we have detected unusual activity in the human territories. Thraken didn't look up from his display. What kind of activity? Ship movements. Large scale. Our sensors indicate they're gathering a fleet. How large? The officer hesitated. Our initial estimates suggest at least 300,000 vessels. Possibly more. Thraken's head snapped up. That's impossible. No species maintains a fleet that size. We've checked multiple times, Warlord. The readings are consistent. For the first time in years, Thraken felt something like concern. The Kethrak fleet was the strongest in this region. 15,000 warships, each one powerful enough to destroy a small city. They had never encountered resistance they couldn't overcome. But 300,000 ships? Where are they heading? Toward our territory, Warlord. Current projections suggest they're targeting this system. Thraken stood up quickly. His claws scraped against the metal floor. Send recall orders to all fleet elements. Every ship returns to Kethros Prime immediately. Establish defensive perimeter around the homeworld. Alert all military installations to maximum readiness. The orders went out across the Empire. Ships on patrol began returning home. Defense platforms powered up their weapons. Ground forces prepared for possible invasion. But Thraken knew it would take time. His ships were scattered across dozens of systems. It would take days for them all to arrive. He thought back to the human colony he had destroyed 2 weeks ago. New Haven, they called it. It had been such an easy target. No defenses, no warships, just farmers and families. He had led the attack personally, wanting to make an example, wanting to show these weak humans what real power looked like. Now it seemed the humans were responding. But this many ships? It didn't make sense. The attack on New Haven was supposed to intimidate them, make them fear the Kethrak. Instead, it seemed to have made them angry. 2 days later, long-range sensors detected the human fleet emerging from faster-than-light travel. The duty officer's face went pale as he read the data. His hands were shaking as he approached Thraken. Warlord, the humans have arrived. We have a confirmed count. How many? 700,000 warships, Warlord. The command center went completely silent. Every Kethrak present stopped what they were doing and stared at the duty officer. 700,000. The number was beyond comprehension. The Kethrak had managed to recall 14,000 ships. They were outnumbered 50 to 1. Thraken felt fear for the first time in his life. Real fear. He looked at the tactical display and saw the human fleet spreading across space like a swarm of insects. Thousands upon thousands of ships all moving in perfect formation, all heading toward Kethros Prime. Open all communication channels, he ordered. Try to contact them. Offer negotiations. The communication officer worked frantically at his console. After a moment, he shook his head. No response, Warlord. They're ignoring all hailing frequencies. On the bridge of the Retribution, Admiral Stone watched the enemy homeworld grow larger on his display. His tactical officers were feeding him constant updates. Enemy fleet size, defensive positions, weapon ranges, everything they needed to know. Sir, we're receiving communication attempts from the planet, his communication officer reported. They want to negotiate. Stone's face was like carved ice. Ignore them. All ships, weapons free. Begin the attack. The order spread through the fleet instantly. 700,000 ships surged forward, their engines burning bright in the darkness of space. It was like watching an ocean wave, massive and unstoppable, rolling toward the shore. Captain Helen Price felt the Vengeance shake as its main engines pushed to maximum power. Around her, the bridge crew worked with focused intensity. Nobody spoke unless necessary. Everyone knew what they were here to do. All weapons charged and ready, Captain, her tactical officer reported. Target the nearest capital ship, Helen ordered. Fire when in range. The space between the two fleets began to shrink. 10,000 miles, 8,000, 5,000. Then the shooting started. The Kethrak fired first. Their ships unleashed massive energy beams that could punch through metal like paper. Several human ships exploded immediately, torn apart by the powerful weapons. But for every human ship destroyed, 100 more kept coming. Then the humans returned fire. 700,000 ships shooting at once created a light show unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. Missiles streaked through space by the millions. Energy weapons crisscrossed in every direction. The void between the fleets became a storm of destruction. Commander Lisa Grant led her squadron of destroyers through the chaos. Ships exploded all around her. She saw a Kethrak cruiser tear 3 human frigates apart with one salvo. Then 20 human ships surrounded the cruiser and destroyed it in seconds. Keep moving, she ordered her squadron. Don't bunch up. Spread your fire. Take out their command vessels. Her ships weaved through the battle, targeting the larger enemy ships. The Kethrak fought with skill and experience. Their weapons were powerful. Their armor was thick. Their crews were trained warriors. But none of it mattered. The humans just kept coming. Wave after wave of ships, shooting and fighting and dying, but never stopping. The Kethrak defensive line held for 17 minutes. Then it broke. A massive human dreadnought smashed through the center of their formation, weapons blazing from every side. Behind it came hundreds more ships pouring through the gap. The Kethrak formation split apart, ships scattering in every direction, trying to regroup. But there was nowhere to go. Everywhere the Kethrak turned, more human ships appeared. They were surrounded, drowning in enemies. Individual Kethrak vessels fought bravely, taking down multiple human ships before being destroyed. But it wasn't enough. Nothing was enough against these numbers. On Kethros Prime, Thraken watched his fleet die. The tactical display showed red markers disappearing one by one. Each red marker was a ship. Each ship held hundreds of warriors. They were all dying, and there was nothing he could do to stop it. Warlord, we must evacuate, his second-in-command urged. The fleet cannot hold. The humans will reach the planet within the hour. Thraken wanted to refuse, wanted to fight to the last. But he wasn't stupid. This battle was lost. The war was lost. The humans had brought a force that couldn't be stopped. Prepare my flagship for departure, he ordered. We'll retreat to... Sir, human ships are already blocking all escape routes. They've surrounded the entire system. Thraken felt his hope die. There was no escape. The humans weren't here to invade. They were here to destroy. He looked at his officers, saw the same realization in their eyes. They were all going to die here. In space, the last of the Kethrak fleet was being wiped out. A few ships tried to run, but human vessels chased them down. Others tried to surrender, broadcasting messages of capitulation. The humans ignored them and kept firing. There would be no prisoners today. Captain Helen Price saw a Kethrak battleship trying to flee. It was massive, covered in weapons and armor. Probably the enemy flagship. Disable that ship, she ordered. Target the engines only. I want it alive. Her squadron concentrated their fire on the fleeing battleship's engines. It took 3 volleys, but finally the enemy ship went dead in space, unable to move but still intact. "Send boarding teams," Helen said. "Secure that vessel. I want whoever's in command taken alive." The battle lasted 6 hours total. When it ended, the Kethrak fleet existed only as debris. 14,000 ships destroyed, hundreds of thousands of Kethrak warriors dead. The human fleet had lost just over 4,000 ships. A terrible price, but nothing compared to what they had inflicted. Admiral Stone stood on his bridge and looked at the defeated world below. The planet was defenseless now. No fleet, no orbital weapons, nothing between humanity and the surface. "Sir, we're detecting civilian transmissions from the planet," his communication officer said. "They're begging for mercy." Stone thought about New Haven, about the civilians there who had also begged for mercy, about how the Kethrak had shown them none. He felt the anger burning in his chest, urging him to give the order, to bombard the planet until nothing remained, but he couldn't. He was human. That meant something. "Open a channel to all ships," he ordered. "Civilian areas are not to be targeted. Military installations only. We came here for justice, not genocide. We'll destroy their ability to make war, but we won't become monsters to defeat monsters." Some captains protested. Some wanted complete destruction, but the order stood. Human ships began precision bombardment of military targets. Bases, shipyards, weapons factories, government buildings. Everything that made the Kethrak a military power was systematically destroyed. But the residential areas remained untouched. The schools and hospitals and homes stayed safe. The disabled Kethrak flagship floated in space like a dead whale. Its engines were destroyed, weapons offline, life support barely functioning. Human boarding ships attached to its hull like parasites, cutting through the thick armor to reach the interior. Captain Helen Price led the assault team personally. She wore full combat armor and carried a rifle that could punch through metal walls. Behind her came 30 Marines, all heavily armed and ready for a fight. They cut their way into the ship and immediately met resistance. Kethrak warriors fought with desperate fury. They were 8 feet tall and incredibly strong. One grabbed a human Marine and threw him across the corridor like a toy. But the humans had numbers and better weapons. For every Marine that fell, 3 more took his place. They pushed forward relentlessly, clearing corridor after corridor. The fighting was brutal. Close quarters combat in narrow hallways. No room for strategy or tactics. Just raw violence. Kethrak warriors refused to surrender, fighting until they were killed. Human Marines showed no mercy, remembering what these aliens had done to New Haven. After 2 hours of fighting, they reached the command deck. The door was sealed, reinforced with extra armor. Helen ordered her team to plant explosives. The blast tore the door apart and the Marines rushed through. Inside, they found Warlord Thraken surrounded by his dead officers. He held a weapon in one of his 4 hands. His red eyes glowed with hate as he stared at the humans. "You should have killed me from orbit," he growled in broken English. Helen kept her rifle aimed at his chest. "That would have been too quick. You're going to stand trial for murdering 40,000 humans. You're going to answer for what you did. My people don't recognize your laws. Then you'll die in our prison instead of your homeworld. Either way, you'll pay." Thraken looked at the Marines surrounding him. He was outnumbered 20 to 1. Even with his strength, he couldn't fight that many. Slowly, he lowered his weapon and placed it on the ground. "You humans are weak," he said. "You show mercy even to your enemies. That weakness will destroy you." Helen stepped closer. "We destroyed your entire fleet in 6 hours. We broke your empire in a single day. And you think we're weak? You really don't understand us at all." Marines moved forward and secured Thraken in restraint strong enough to hold his massive frame. He was dragged off the ship, along with 63 other high-ranking Kethrak officers they had captured. All would be transported to Earth to face justice. On the surface of Kethros Prime, Commander Lisa Grant established a command post in what remained of the Capitol building. Her job was to coordinate the occupation and ensure the civilian population could survive. It wasn't a job she wanted, but someone had to do it. The city around her was in chaos. The Kethrak government had collapsed completely. Military infrastructure lay in ruins. Millions of civilians wandered the streets, confused and afraid. Many were starving because the human bombardment had destroyed supply lines. Lisa organized teams to distribute food and medical supplies. It felt strange feeding the same species that had murdered New Haven's colonists. Some of her soldiers refused to help at first. They wanted the Kethrak to suffer. I understand your anger, Lisa told her troops. I feel it too. But we're not here to starve civilians. We're here to make sure this never happens again. That means helping these people survive while we dismantle their military. A Kethrak civilian administrator approached her office one day. He was old by their standards, his scales faded and scarred. He spoke English haltingly. Why help us? After what we did? Lisa looked at him for a long moment. Because that's the difference between your people and mine. You killed civilians and called it strength. We defeated your military and we're still helping your civilians survive. That's real strength. The administrator didn't seem to understand, but he accepted the food supplies and left. Back in space, Admiral Stone coordinated the fleet's activities. 700,000 ships couldn't stay in one place forever. Many needed repairs. Crews needed rest. Supplies needed replenishing. But he kept the fleet in orbit for 2 weeks, a constant reminder of what happened when humanity was pushed too far. Casualty reports came in slowly. 4,327 ships destroyed, 38,000 personnel killed, another 90,000 wounded. The numbers hit Stone hard. Every one of those deaths was his responsibility. Every family that got a notification letter would blame him. But then he thought about New Haven. 40,000 civilians who never had a chance to fight back. Children who died in their mother's arms. Families burned alive in their homes. His people had died as warriors in battle. New Haven's people had died as helpless victims. It was worth it, he said quietly to himself. His executive officer, Commander Paul Wright, stood beside him looking at the casualty lists. Sir, do you really believe that? I have to. Otherwise, what did they die for? Captain Daniel Hayes, the man who discovered New Haven's destruction, requested permission to land on Kethros Prime. Admiral Stone granted it. Daniel took a shuttle down to the surface and walked through the ruins of the Kethrak Military Command Center. He found the chamber where Warlord Thraken had planned the attack on New Haven. It was damaged but still standing. Daniel stood there for a long time thinking about all the people he couldn't save. The fleet had won. They had taken revenge. But it didn't bring anyone back. He thought about the little pink shoe he had seen in New Haven's ruins. Some child had worn that shoe, had run around in it, played in it. Now that child was dead and the shoe was all that remained. I hope this means the next colony will be safer, he said to the empty room. I hope it means fewer children die. The trial preparations began immediately. Human lawyers arrived to document war crimes. They interviewed survivors from the boarding teams. They collected evidence from the destroyed colony. They built a case that would convict Thraken and his officers of mass murder. The Kethrak would face human justice. Some people thought they should be executed immediately, but humanity had laws. Those laws applied even to aliens who had committed terrible crimes. The trial would be public. Everyone would see what happened. Everyone would understand the price of attacking humanity. Admiral Stone prepared a message to be broadcast throughout the galaxy. He wanted everyone to hear it. Every species, every government, every individual who might think about threatening humanity in the future. This is Admiral Gregory Stone of the United Earth Fleet. 3 weeks ago, the Kethrak Empire attacked the human colony of New Haven without provocation or warning. They killed 40,000 civilians, men, women, and children. They showed no mercy and took no prisoners. He paused, making sure his words would be understood. We responded with 700,000 warships. We destroyed their fleet. We dismantled their military infrastructure. We captured their leaders. And we did it in less than a day. Another pause. Let this be a message to every species in the galaxy. Humanity seeks peace. We want cooperation and friendship with our neighbors. But if you attack our civilians, if you murder our people, we will respond with overwhelming force. We can mobilize more ships than you knew existed. We can bring more firepower than you can imagine, and we will not stop until justice is served. He looked directly at the camera. To those who would be our friends, we offer partnership and mutual benefit. To those who would be our enemies, we offer this warning. Humanity remembers. Humanity endures, and humanity will never forgive those who harm the innocent. This message is concluded. The broadcast was sent on every known frequency. Within days, it reached dozens of different species. Within weeks, it spread across the entire known galaxy. The reaction was immediate and powerful. 3 neighboring civilizations that had been considering expansion into human territory immediately opened diplomatic channels. They wanted trade agreements, not war. Two species that had harassed human ships in the past issued formal apologies and paid reparations. A dozen others requested embassy exchanges, wanting to establish peaceful relations. The Kethrak attack had been meant to show humanity's weakness. Instead, it revealed humanity's true nature. A species that preferred peace but would wage total war when pushed. A species that held to its principles even in victory. A species that was dangerous precisely because it tried so hard to be peaceful. On Earth, memorials were built for those who died at New Haven. Every name was carved into black stone. Every face was remembered. The colony site remained empty for now, too painful to rebuild immediately, but it would be rebuilt eventually. Humanity didn't abandon places just because terrible things happened there. Captain Helen Price attended the memorial dedication. She stood before the wall of names and read them one by one. These people had just wanted to farm and build homes. They hadn't asked to be part of history. They had just wanted quiet lives on a new world. You won't be forgotten, she promised them, and what happened to you will never happen again. We made sure of that. The galaxy had learned a lesson that day. Humanity was patient and peaceful. But patience had limits. Peace had a price, and that price was paid in full by anyone who mistook kindness for weakness. 6 months had passed since the battle at Kethros Prime. The galaxy was still adjusting to what had happened. Nobody had expected humanity to respond with such overwhelming force. 700,000 warships was a number that would be remembered for centuries. It changed everything. Commander Lisa Grant remained on Kethros Prime, leading the occupation force. What started as a punishment duty had become something more complicated. The Kethrak civilians needed help rebuilding their world. Their government was gone, their military destroyed, their infrastructure in ruins. Without human assistance, millions would starve. She walked through the streets of the capital city every day. At first, the Kethrak had avoided her. They feared humans, expected cruelty and revenge. But as weeks turned into months, they began to understand. The humans weren't here to enslave them. They were here to make sure the Kethrak could never threaten anyone again. A young Kethrak female approached Lisa one day. She was barely 4 feet tall, maybe their equivalent of a teenager. She carried a small package wrapped in cloth. "Commander Grant, I made this for you." She handed over the package nervously. Lisa unwrapped it carefully. Inside was a carving made from local wood. It showed a human and a Kethrak standing together, not fighting. The craftsmanship was beautiful, detailed and careful. "Why did you make this?" Lisa asked gently. "Because you helped my family. When the military fell, we had no food. Your soldiers gave us supplies. You didn't have to do that." I wanted to say thank you. Lisa felt something tight in her chest. These people had murdered 40,000 humans. But this girl had nothing to do with that. She was just trying to survive. "You're welcome," Lisa said. "We're here to help." The girl smiled and ran off. Lisa stood there holding the carving, thinking about how complicated everything had become. Revenge had been simple. Justice was harder. On Earth, the trial of warlord Thraken began. The courtroom was packed with journalists, diplomats, and survivors. Cameras broadcast everything to the entire galaxy. This wasn't just about punishing one alien. This was about establishing rules, about showing everyone that mass murder had consequences. Thraken stood in the defendant's cage, still massive and intimidating despite being in chains. He glared at the human judges with his red eyes. He refused to speak, refused to defend himself. He believed the trial was meaningless. The strong took what they wanted. The weak suffered. That was the only law that mattered to him. The prosecution presented their evidence. Videos from New Haven showing the attack, testimony from Captain Daniel Hayes about what he found, recordings from the Kethrak flagship showing Thraken giving the order to destroy the colony. The evidence was overwhelming and undeniable. The defense attorney, a human lawyer who volunteered for the impossible task, argued that Thraken was following his culture's customs, that the Kethrak didn't understand human concepts of war crimes, that he shouldn't be judged by human standards. The judges listened politely. Then they convicted him on all charges. Mass murder, crimes against humanity, war crimes. The sentence was life imprisonment without possibility of parole. Thraken finally spoke as guards led him away. "You're fools, showing mercy to enemies, applying laws to war. These things make you weak. Someday someone stronger will come, and they'll destroy you," one of the judges responded quietly. We destroyed your entire empire in one day. We're not the weak ones. Admiral Stone retired from active duty 3 months after the battle. He was 59 years old and had given his entire adult life to the military. He had commanded the largest fleet in history, won the most decisive victory ever recorded. There was nothing left to prove. At his retirement ceremony, he stood before thousands of people and spoke simply. I did what needed to be done, but I hope we never have to do it again. War should always be the last choice, never the first one. We showed the galaxy what humans can do when pushed. Now we need to show them what we can build in peace. The fleet dispersed slowly. 700,000 ships couldn't stay together forever. They returned to their home bases, their colonies, their regular duties. But they carried something with them now. A memory, a pride. They had been part of something historic. Captain Helen Price remained in the military and was promoted to admiral. She took command of the Frontier Defense Force, responsible for protecting the outer colonies. It was a critical job. Every colony needed to feel safe. After New Haven, humanity had promised that would never happen again. She visited the rebuilt New Haven colony 2 years after the attack. It looked different now. The buildings were newer, the streets wider, but there was a memorial in the center of town. 40,000 names carved in stone, a reminder of what had been lost. Helen stood before the memorial and thought about the price of peace. 38,000 human soldiers had died to avenge these civilians. Was it worth it? She still didn't know. But she knew it had been necessary. Captain Daniel Hayes retired from space travel. He bought a small house on Earth and spent his days writing. He wrote about New Haven, about the people he couldn't save, about the aftermath. His book became required reading in schools. Every child learned about what happened when peaceful people were pushed too far. He received letters from people across human space, thanking him for discovering New Haven's fate, thanking him for making sure everyone knew what happened. He kept all the letters in a box but rarely read them. The memories were too painful. The galaxy changed in subtle ways. Species that had been aggressive became more diplomatic. Border disputes were settled through negotiation instead of force. Nobody wanted to be the next example. Nobody wanted to see what 700,000 human warships looked like heading their way. Some species tried to build larger fleets, thinking numbers alone would protect them. But they missed the point. Humanity hadn't won because of numbers alone. They had won because they were unified, because they were angry, because they were willing to sacrifice everything for justice. Trade agreements multiplied. Cultural exchanges became common. Human diplomats were suddenly welcome everywhere. Not because people loved humanity, because they respected and feared what humanity could do. Commander Lisa Grant finally left Kethros Prime after 3 years. The planet was stable now. The Kethrak had a new government, democratic and peaceful. They had agreed to limits on their military, to regular inspections, to cooperation with the galactic community. The Empire was gone forever. On her last day, hundreds of Kethrak came to see her off. They brought gifts and flowers. Children who had been toddlers during the war were now in school, learning about peace instead of conquest. They sang a song in English they had learned specially for her departure. Lisa cried. She couldn't help it. These people had been her enemies. Now they were something else. Not quite friends, but not enemies anymore either. Take care of each other, she told them, and remember, peace is always better than war. Always. Admiral Stone watched news reports from his retirement home. He saw the changes spreading across the galaxy. More cooperation. Less conflict. People solving problems with words instead of weapons. It wasn't perfect. There were still disputes and tensions, but it was better. His wife sat beside him, holding his hand. Do you think it will last? She asked. I don't know, he admitted. But at least now people have a reason to try. They know what happens if they don't. Captain Helen Price stood on the bridge of her flagship looking at the stars. Her fleet patrolled the frontier constantly, watching for threats. They found very few. Most species were behaving themselves now. She thought about New Haven often, about the 40,000 people who died there, about the 38,000 soldiers who died avenging them, about the millions of Kethrak civilians who suffered because of their leaders' choices. War created no winners, she realized. Just survivors and ghosts. The humans had won the battle, but everyone had lost something in the process. Still, the sacrifice had meaning. The colonies were safer now. Children could play in purple grass without fear. Families could build homes on distant worlds knowing someone would protect them. That was worth something. Maybe it was worth everything. The message Admiral Stone had sent still echoed through the galaxy. Humanity seeks peace, but humanity will defend itself. It was a simple message, but a powerful one. Every species understood it now. You could be humanity's friend or humanity's enemy, but you couldn't be both, and you definitely couldn't ignore them. On Earth, in the Hall of History, they built a new exhibit. It showed the Battle of Kethros Prime. 700,000 ships in perfect formation. The largest military operation ever undertaken. But the exhibit didn't glorify war. It showed the cost. The names of everyone who died. The devastation on both sides. The plaque at the entrance read simple words. War is sometimes necessary, but it is never good. We remember those who gave everything so others could live in peace. We honor them by working to make sure their sacrifice was not in vain. Children visited the exhibit on school trips. They saw the ships, the battles, the destruction. Then they saw the peace that followed. The lesson was clear. Strength without mercy is tyranny. Mercy without strength is weakness. True civilization required both, the galaxy learned. Humanity taught, and slowly, carefully, something new began to grow. Not perfect peace. That was impossible. But something better than constant war,